Good evening, golf friends, and welcome to our webinar series, Tuesday Traces. As you know, the purpose of this webinar is to show how the V1 pressure mat is used by some of our most exceptional industry partners. This platform is simply to share information and hopefully answer questions from some really advanced golf friends that are versed in the pressure mat technology. We also like to have a little fun along the way, so feel free to put funny comments, funny questions, or good ones, and we will try to get to all of them in the chat window or on Facebook. Tonight is going to be really exciting, as I think my co-host probably has more degrees, accomplishments, and accolades than I can possibly imagine that she has earned in her short 64 years, which is a correction from earlier. She is going to make us all look really, really smart tonight. Welcome to all the folks that have registered and have joined us via the Zoom webinar. And welcome to everyone tuning in from the V1 Sports Facebook Live channel. Just a quick note, the recording of tonight's webinar will be available on our YouTube channel in a few days. If you're registered for the Zoom, you'll automatically receive a copy of the recording after Anna edits it. Usually takes her a few days. We love answering your questions. Please put them in either chat window and we will get them to Dr. Kiran before the webinar is over. A little bit about V1, since I see a lot of new faces tuning in tonight, or new names. V1 Sports is a 25-year-old company. We are the leader in delivering video analysis and instruction solutions to golfers and golf instructors around the world. Our development team is leading the industry with software integrations, including BodyTrack, Foresight, and lots of others on the way. Please reach out to sales at V1 Sports to hear about our turnkey Golf Academy for Improvement solution. This is a package that we're putting together that's everything you need to teach and learn a really great golf lesson or have a golf studio in your home. So it's a great little package my sales team and I are happy to present. I am Mandy Von See. I am the regional sales manager for V1 Sports based in Charleston, South Carolina, where it is warm. After doing over 3 months of Tuesday Traces webinars, I'm really excited to present some different ideas, and I'll hope you'll consider adding this technology so that we can keep growing the golf industry and getting better. As you know, the golf industry is still growing during COVID, which is very exciting and really fun to support. I got a ton of really cool folks lined up to host Tuesday Traces with me over the next few weeks, and tonight is absolutely no exception. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Kiran Kanwar, who is sharing an hour with us, and we'll get right back to enjoying time with her grandbabies before they head back to New York. Kiran, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Mandy.
How many grandbabies are you visiting with in your, just one little boy?
Yes.
And he's 5 or 6? Two. So he's not quite swinging the golf club yet, but that will be, I'm sure, next on your agenda.
The grandmom is already at it.
Okay, good to know. Okay, a little bit about Dr. Kiran Kanwar. At 63, just a year ago in December, she completed her Ph.D. in kinesiology with a concentration in biomechanics. She is on a mission to perfect a golf swing that causes less wear and tear on the body and is more effective on the course. Would you agree with that statement? Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, good. I took that from you, that you're on a mission to perfect the swing that causes less wear. I thought that was good. I feel that passion from you. Kiran Kanwar has been a golf instructor for over 31 years. She is a golf swing researcher for over 27 years and has continued her research to get better understanding of the sciences that together govern human movement. She is always learning, always researching, and always sharing with her community. Like I said, she has a PhD in biomechanics and anatomy, an MS in sports science and nutrition. She is an LPGA Master Professional with a thesis in causes of golf swing related injury. She has 4 Class A teaching credentials: LPGA, the PGA, the NGA of India, and the PGA of India. We would literally be here all night if I listed all of Kiran's accomplishments, accolades, and achievements. Kiran is the developer of the world's only researched and anatomically viable golf swing. Even describing your method is tripping me up because it's so smart. Her swing method is called the minimalist golf swing. Please feel free to check it out on her YouTube channel and her websites. My team will share her contact information in the chat window, but her website address is yourgolfguru.com and mgs.golf. They will also share her email address. So Kiran, thanks for being here. Did I share your bio okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Mandy.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So my first question is, how did you get involved in golf? When did you start? 4 years of amazing knowledge you've built up. How did you get started doing this?
I started at 16 because my dad used to not have much time but played once a month. And he and I were the two worst golfers on the entire golf course. This was in Mumbai in India. And so it's been my lifetime's goal to get better. And then in the bargain, as I understood this, understood the swing more, I wanted to help others get better too. So just being horrible at it is what motivated me to get into it.
That's a good answer. So you started at 16 and then you did you go to college for golf?
No, I just did a BS and then I got a bachelor's degree in India in physics and math. Then I went off to, I got married, had a kid, did all the typical traditional Indian housewife things. And then when your kid goes to college and you have to reinvent yourself, that's when I said, oh, I could go to college too. It was like a dream come true to come to the US to go to college in America. That was like a fabulous achievement for me because, at my stage in life, at that stage in life, nobody ever thought that women in India deserved an education or to go abroad for an education, stuff like that. So it was exciting.
That's awesome. You sure earned it. A lot of education. Hey, so when in your career did you go win is it the US Open for India?
No. Yeah, it's the National Amateur Championship of India way back in 1983.
So when did you do that? When did you become so good at golf? You went won the.
I was playing golf while I was having a kid, and just playing a lot of golf. So I did some couple of years of competitive golf, and I was lucky enough to win the national championship.
Like no big deal. You were just, a mom taking care of your baby. You went and won the.
No, very, very big deal actually, because I was.
I mean, that is a huge deal. Everyone watching is like thinking about their.
I was a highly mediocre golfer, and I beat all the best golfers of the country in that 1 week. It was match play. And as I always tell people, it was my mother praying, oh, please let my daughter not be so horrible. And that's what made me win the championship.
I doubt that was just it. Okay, so let's see, where was my next question for you? Okay, so I read this and I know personally that you have a passion for empowering women. And I wanted to personally thank you for your research that you did for us tonight and for your support of me and this Tuesday Trace platform and for sharing what you've learned with us tonight. So thank you for that. You've been so supportive of me and I appreciate that personally. But where do you get that from? Where I know you do a lot of empowerment for women. Can you talk to us about that?
I have not done so far, but it's a lifetime's passion to have the opportunity to do. I would love to have the money to donate to not-for-profits that focus on education for girls. That's like something I'm really interested in, and I'm waiting for the opportunity for that to happen.
Well, I sure have felt your support, so thank you for that. It's been really awesome. Okay, so I told you this story, and I want to tell everyone because you said that not very many people know you. And I, of course, know you a lot. I think a lot of people in this industry do know you. And earlier today, I got a call from Stephen Cox. Most of the people that watch all of our traces know Stephen Cox. He's a pro down at the PGA National in Florida and extremely knowledgeable on the pressure mat. Probably one of my top 5 most go-to guys for pressure mat questions. And he called me because he said, I have my kids tonight and I really want the recording of the webinar with Dr. Kiran. I said, that's awesome. I said, yes, of course you'll get the recording. I said, what do you know about her? What makes you so interested in this? He's never called me for another recording. And he said, and I love what he said about you. He said he's a fan because Dr. Khanwar is revolutionizing how we use our muscles via the path of least resistance. And I actually challenged him. I said, Stephen, do you really mean the word revolutionizing? He said, absolutely. She is revolutionizing. And so I thought that was really impressive and powerful from a peer that just wanted to see the recording and had those words to say. So what do you think about that?
I'd say thank you very much. I'm very honored that such a famous instructor as you even knows of me. And I would change the word muscle for joint.
Okay.
And really you have to position every joint in your body based on its design capabilities. to maximize its performance capabilities and minimize the amount of injury that it will be subjected to.
Okay, good. And thank you for correcting me. I think I said muscles a couple of times tonight. Okay, so, you know, you have a method, but you've also done a lot of research with the body track mat. So I know you're going to talk a little bit about both. You want to start would you like to start your screen share? Yes, we do have a question, but it's not quite time for the question yet. We've got someone asking about the shoes. So I'm going to weave that in when we get to that slide, or a slide that's relevant.
So let me start my screen share.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. I'm going to ask Doc your question here shortly.
All right. Can everybody see the screen share?
Yes, we can see your screen share and we can see your face. So people can also see you talking in the little screen as well.
All right. So folks, I want to tell you that I don't know what you've signed up for, but you're going to hear some very outside the box lateral thinking today. And don't switch off yet in disgust. Oh, some new ideas. We don't like this newfangled stuff. Because here's what. It's going to be super simple. You don't have to have some highfalutin knowledge and attend a bunch of certification courses. It's going to be super simple. And even though it's outside the box thinking, I've done a lot of research just for this webinar to make sure that everything I'm going to say is backed up by somebody else's research. So it's all about new thinking on pressure traces of elite golfers today. All right, so how do we move? We have a central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, and it uses muscles. Remember Mandy's favorite word, muscles. You're going to hear a lot about muscles today, to stabilize the body for balance or to destabilize the body for movement. And what do I mean by that? Like, I'm sitting in this seat here, and because there's so much of my weight, don't laugh, going through my butt, I'm in a very stable position. If I want to destabilize myself, and the best way to do it is to use gravity, I lean a little forward, and now there's not so much pressure going through my butt. And then it's very easy for me, for my butt or glute muscles to contract and get me to stand up. So the central nervous system is doing all this for us. It doesn't take any special inputs on our part in a lot of cases to create the movement we want. And now every single movement that a human being makes requires resistance. So I'm not going to discuss all the details. You can read what's there. But mainly resistance provides purchase for muscles, Mandy's favorite word, to contract off of and thus produce motion. So what do I mean? You see this man in the chair, he's pushing down with his hands and he's able to then move himself up. Or the athlete that's running is pushing down into the ground so that it offers him some resistance against which his muscles can contract and create the movement he needs. As well with the swimmer, they're pushing against the wall, and that offers a resistance against which muscles can contract and move the swimmer off. And it's not just when you're in contact with a surface. Can you all see this pen here, Mandy?
Yeah. You can unshare your screen if you want.
All right, no, this is fine. So I have this pen and I'm trying really hard to open up the top, but it just won't. As soon as I offer some resistance, just hold it in place with one hand, then it's very easy to pull. So every movement that you make requires some amount of resistance. I'm not going to use any scientific or technical terms, but it is very scientific. I'm just saying it in a different way. Oops, something happened here. Why did this stop moving?
You're good. Try it again. There it goes.
All right. And then this is a quote I've just picked up from a journal, from a letter to the editor that Robert Neal wrote. And he says the body would have nothing to push against the ground if the foot was not in contact with the ground and bearing some of the body's weight. He was referring to something like this golfer's trail foot, which is practically not on the ground. So we know in general that pushing against a surface provides support against which specific muscles, remember that big word, can help a movement occur. And now if you all would like to join in, I'm going to stand up and show you some movements.
Wait, you got to unshare your screen though, so we can see you bigger.
Am I not big enough?
Well, not on the little screen. See, that's so much better. Now I can do it with you.
All right. All right. So is this good?
Yeah, good.
All right, so I'm standing only on my left leg now. If any of you want to stand up and do it, stand only on your left leg.
Okay.
And then make a downswing movement, like move forward and rotate.
Okay.
Which muscles do you feel are acting? Your left side muscles or right side muscles?
Left.
You're sure? Which leg are you standing on?
I'm standing on my left.
And your left side muscles are acting, right? Now
Yes.
put your right foot down and lift up your left leg and
Okay.
rotate like in a backswing and move your arms. Which muscles are acting?
My right glute.
All right. So the moral of the story, folks, is that whichever leg is pushed into the ground, and I'm going to share my screen again.
Okay.
That's the muscle that whichever leg is pushed into the ground, that the muscles of that side will be acting more forcefully. All right. And so can there ever be a situation when there's too much pressure? And I think I'll have to unshare again to show you some more stuff. Do I have to unshare again? Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to show you. Can you see? Oh, but you can't see my picture as well. Anyway, so
Yeah, we can see it.
I'm standing here. And once I finish my explanation, I'll share the screen and you'll understand what I'm talking about. In the first picture, you'll see I have pushed my hip and my knee well past my trail or right side, hip and knee well past my foot. All right. And if I show you the pressure trace, you will see that there's some 96% pressure through this trail leg. Even if I reduce it so that my hip, knee, and ankle are all aligned and on top of my foot, there's still about 70% pressure on this trail leg. You want to try and stand, Mandy, and anyone else that wants to try, stand so that on your trail or right, if you're right-handed, your hip joint, knee joint, and foot joint are directly one above the other.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Oh, okay. So you're not sticking your hip and knee past your foot. You're just got your hip, knee, and ankle above the foot. All right.
Okay.
Now we have a bunch of muscles here called our abductors, which I'll explain in detail. See if you can use these trail side muscles to push you like a weight shift to the left. Only these. Don't pull with the left side. Don't pull with the left leg. Just push with the right. While keeping your pressure on that leg through the foot. Keep the hip joint, knee joint, and ankle joint on top of the foot and try to push the right upper thigh muscles towards the lead side.
Okay.
But you're using more of the left side. Try to push from don't pull from the left inner thigh.
Okay.
And so usually if you keep your hip and knee above the foot, you're putting so much of your weight through that foot that it's in a very stable position. It's difficult to destabilize. So you would find that these muscles don't push. Of course, the inner thigh of the lead side will still be able to pull, but not as efficiently. I'll come to that. And also just while keeping your hip and knee on top of your ankle, if you rotate, you'll find that your pressure stays back and you're hanging back.
I feel that.
If you shift weight a little more, so it's a little more centered, now you can push with the right thigh muscles, you can pull with the inner thigh, you can rotate more freely, you have much more freedom. And eventually when you shift the hip and the knee and the ankle on top of the lead foot, again, you will find that you don't have the ability to rotate and shift weight as much. All right. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have even 70% of pressure, it's a lot of pressure through the foot because the weight of your thigh and your leg are all acting directly above through your foot, creating a lot of pressure. So it's difficult to move against the pressure. Just as I explained, when I'm sitting on a chair, if I want to destabilize, I have to lean forwards and then my glutes can act more forcefully. So always the moral of the story is, if you put too much pressure to your weight acting through the base of support or the foot in this case, it's more difficult to move those muscles.
So
sorry, let me share my screen again.
Centered, the center of pressure centered.
No, I'll come to that. So what I'm saying is, now on the picture on the left, you will see that I've got at my feet, I've put 96 and 4. That's way too much pressure. But even the picture on the right has 68% on the trail, through the trail leg. And the 2 red dots are going directly above the trail foot. And even that makes it difficult for some muscles to move. That's all I'm trying to say for now. All right.
Okay, and really quickly, Doc, I want to tell everyone the 2 graphs above your head are their pressure graphs, but they are opposite your feet. So we're looking in the graph at her left foot, but it is opposite the way she's standing. So it's backwards. I didn't want everyone to say, wait, that doesn't look right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And because it's a little confusing, then I've put the pressure on my feet. My trails, the one under my right or trail foot is 96% of my total pressure. And on the lead, I've hardly got any pressure, 4%. And then the second one, I've got 68 and 32. If you were able to enlarge this right-hand side pressure trace, you could see that number there.
Yeah, the numbers show up right in that gray box. Sometimes it's hard to see on our webinar, but they're right there. And then she's got the toe and heel measurements as well. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out about our
That's
graphs.
perfect, Mandy. That's absolutely perfect. Just please interrupt so that you add to whatever I'm saying. All right. And then, all right. So now we keep using the word muscles. And as I said, depending on how much pressure is on that foot, if you have more pressure on the trail side, those muscles are more able to act. If you have more pressure on the lead side, those muscles are able to act. Just as when you walk, if you have 2 feet on the ground and you suddenly raise your right foot in preparation for taking a step forward, you will suddenly, the body will shift a lot of its weight and put a lot of pressure through the left foot. All right. Just in walking, in every movement, you use the muscles of the side you have more pressure on, because, as I said, you need the contact to push off against and get the resistance of the ground so that your muscles can get some purchase and push off of them. So now this is a very detailed slide. What I really want you to, this is based on 3 research papers that are at the bottom left. I've cited those papers. They had, 2 of them had skilled and less skilled golfers, lower handicap and higher handicap. And one had golfers below 5 handicap. So that was they were like skilled golfers, you would say. And they divided 2 of them talked about forward swing from top of backswing to club horizontal. And one of them just took the whole downswing as one movement. But anyway, between the 3 papers, I've combined their results. And you can see here in the forward swing on the right-hand side, the first 3 muscles or the first 4 muscles are those that will extend your hip joint. I will explain that in the next slide. And then the G max will also rotate your trail hip, while the G medius will push your trail hip towards the lead side. So you can see that there are many more muscles acting during the forward swing. And acceleration, which for them was either shaft horizontal or the whole downswing. There was your oblique muscles of your core acting, and then some other muscles that they are more muscles of the knee and the hip, which I'm not going to discuss here because they are more stabilizing muscles than movement muscles. And then there's also the G max of the lead side. And you can see on the left hand side that the forward swing has a lot of muscles acting. And when they say acceleration, they themselves say activity of the muscles shifts to the lead side. So all I need you to know from this slide basically is that some muscles act in the forward swing and they are on the trail side mostly. And some muscles act during acceleration and they are on the lead side. Any questions, anyone so far? Was I clear on that? All right, so this is my next slide.
Wait, are you going to define these muscles?
Yeah, I don't want to discuss the muscles. You have to look at, I don't want to make it anything very complex, but I'm going to discuss the movements. All right.
Okay.
So
good.
This big giant bone here is your pelvis. The picture on the left has someone at the top of the backswing. And then the picture on the right has someone like at almost club shaft horizontal somewhere in
Doc,
there.
you can slow down. Don't talk so fast.
All right. So I'm going to repeat myself. So I'm not going to talk of specific muscles, but I'm going to talk of specific muscle actions.
Okay.
The picture on the left has a person at the top of their backswing. and the picture on the right has a person, the same person, when the shaft is approximately horizontal. And the main movement that I'm going to focus on is the pelvis movement, because that is our kinematic sequence that goes from the ground up. That is the first movement that we measure before the shoulders, arm, and club. So what I'm trying to say is, from the top of the backswing, look at the pelvis and then look at it at club shaft horizontal. When the pelvis moves towards the lead side in the downswing, it moves away from the trail thigh or femur, and that movement is an AB, abduction of the trail hip, and an AD, deduction of the lead hip. And then an extension of the hip is when the hip straightens up slightly, the pelvis straightens up slightly. And you can see in the forward swing on the left, the trail, hip extensors, and abductors are acting. So basically your pelvis is being moved towards the left and straightened out a little bit. All right. And those
is that more, can we think of that more as a lateral movement or a rotation around that hip bone?
Well, so that's a very good question. The movement that they talk of as a hip extensor, they also include the gluteus maximus, which is a very powerful muscle of pelvis rotation, not just of hip rotation, not just of hip extension. So there is a rotation. Mainly we are saying that there is a sideways movement of the pelvis and a rotation. And that's in the first part of the downswing. And then in the second part of the downswing, the trail side, we're still talking of the trail side, torso rotators, your oblique muscles that are in your abdomen area, those are the ones that are acting more during your acceleration phase, by which time your pressure has moved towards the lead side. All right. So your pressure has moved from the right, at which stage your hip is able to extend and abduct, to slightly to the left, where your torso rotators are also able to act. Is that clear? Am I saying it well enough? Does anyone have any questions?
Let me just ask you. So I like these pictures too. So from the top of the swing to the first half of that downswing, let's say, you're saying it's more of a lateral movement. And then the second half of that is a little more lateral and rotation?
No, I would say, so yes, that is one way of putting it, but I would say in the forward swing, you have a sideways movement and a rotation, and then you have more rotation in the second part of the downswing, which is the first part is facilitated by your glutes, which are your butt muscles, and the second part is more facilitated as your pressure has shifted towards the lead side by your abdominal torso rotators, which are your oblique muscles in the front of your torso.
Okay, and so let me ask you, this that you're telling us, is this based on the best use of muscles to optimize the path of least resistance?
No, this is just, so when you do, when you have an opinion in a scientific manner, you must first look at research from other people. And these are the three researchers, the only three papers that as far as I'm aware, and I collect research papers like people collect coins or stamps. So I'm keeping up with all the research that people are producing on the golf swing. And these three researchers have said that these are the muscles that act. Now, the difference, Mandy, that was a good question. The difference between what they have found and the pressure traces I will show you of very elite golfers are different. And it is my suspicion that the golf swing is being taught very differently to elite players, which are causing their, if I may say, rather strange pressure traces.
Ah, okay, that's interesting. So is this something that you would suggest for the beginner golfer like me?
No, I'm saying that this is what researchers have found with their skilled golfers, which were of handicap. One paper had people below 5 handicap. One paper had people of about average 6 handicap, and one paper had people of about average 1 handicap. So they just did a research. Nobody has asked anyone to do anything. They say, come into my lab. Let me put all the markers on you. Let me put some force plates and pressure plates under your feet. And let me put some EMG, electromyography electrodes on you to assess which muscles are firing at which stage in your swing.
Okay, so this
And
is
they
the
are just
scientific
telling us,
data to back up
they are
those
just telling
particular
us
collection of golfers and what they did. So really quickly, I don't know if you're going to tell us about exercises to get there, but we have a cool comment from Bud Nevers. He said, best use of pulley machine that we see at most gyms. That seems to be like a really good comment for kind of how to get this. Does that make sense?
that might make some sense, but be aware that the pulley machine will pull more of your torso muscles and may not help to rotate the pelvis. And the other thing about exercises is I am very keen to see a complete marriage between what actually happens in your swing and the exercises. So you do a lot of exercises. It is known in fitness, there's one important principle of specificity, that you should have exercises that benefit the function that the muscles are supposed to perform. And you might exercise the person to death, they might become very strong, but if the joints in the golf swing are not positioned suitably, they may never use those muscles that you're working on. So it's a very important thing to have a marriage between a swing that uses those muscles and exercises that have the required effect on the muscles.
Okay, got it. I wasn't going to rush out to the gym and get on the pulley system until you consulted with me, but I'm glad to know that I don't need to do that anyway. But thank you for that great question.
But yeah, that was a great question. And there's a lot of exercises, but again, it should depend on what your specific swing is and your specific swing needs.
Okay, cool.
All right. So now I gave you too much information on the muscles. My main idea was to tell you that whichever side you have a little more pressure on, those are the muscles that will act. And you can have too much pressure sometimes. So this is the Z trace that our friend Terry Hashimoto has seen in a lot of people. He has typically seen it in long drivers and golfers and pro golfers of smaller stature. And this is a very famous trace. I just found it on the internet and that's why I've used it. It's a highly elite golfer, very brilliant young man, highly athletic. So in no way a critique. It's just one.
You can tell them who it is because Mike Thomas.
I will wait. I'm going to tell them in the next.
Okay.
All right. So at the top of his backswing, he has 70% of his pressure through the trail side. And we saw when I did the demo that 70% is a lot. Suddenly, by early downswing, which in this case is just lead arm horizontal or club shaft vertical, all of his pressure, 82%, is on his lead side. What does that mean? And then after early downswing, he goes backwards in late downswing and is almost totally stuck in his right toe at impact.
All right, wait, say that again, because a lot of people that are tuning in do not know how to read the Z trace. So explain that one more time, what this is a Z trace that we're looking at, and explain, because there is a backup in this trace and that is sort of hard. So just say that one more time, please.
All right, folks. So a Z trace, I think, is Terry has a knack for finding clever words to describe situations. Terry Hashimoto is whom I like to, is the boss of Body Track. And I like to refer to him as the godfather of pressure traces because he put in years of effort to measure pressure traces of elite players and find patterns in them. So the Z trace is called a Z trace because it has a Z sort of shape. Personally, I don't see the Z shape at all. It looks to me like a map of Missouri State where I used to live with the little comma at the bottom. You see the little comma where the top of backswing is. So what I did was I took the pressure trace of this famous golfer and I just put a white dot at all the main positions he hits from his top of backswing to impact. At the top of his backswing, he has, and I've only put the numbers I've put there are for that side. So at the top of his backswing, his trail side has 70% of his pressure. So the lead side would have 30, and I've not mentioned that. At early downswing, which most people refer to as either P5 or lead arm horizontal or club shaft vertical, I refer to early downswing as the top of your downswing. Just as the top of your backswing is where your backswing ends, I refer to early downswing as the top of your downswing, where your club and your torso are positioned for the forward movement towards target. But anyway, early downswing is a typically used term. At this stage, as soon as his club shaft is vertical and his lead arm is horizontal, he has shifted 82% of his pressure onto his lead side. I'm not talking toe heel so much, although it is fully in the toe, but it's on the lead side. Then in late downswing, when the club shaft is horizontal, there's only about 40 or 50 milliseconds left to impact. He's got 68% of his pressure on his trail side. And at impact, he has 93% of his pressure on his trail toe. In this case, it's totally on the toe. We can see that because you see hot red and green and blue colors. When you see a lot of color, especially red and orange and yellow, you know there's a lot of pressure there. So this is the Z trace. In this, if you were just to look at somebody's trace and you had put all the dots on a single trace all together, what would you see? You would see that from the top of the backswing, where he's obviously shifted weight to the trail side, he's suddenly moving it all to the lead side. And what is causing that? That is an important question. Why does pressure then go backwards? To my mind, both the situations of going forward in early downswing and then backwards all the way to impact is either the effect of how the central nervous system behaves or some restriction. All right. And I'm going to explain what I mean in the very next slide.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
You don't think that's intentional?
I'm coming to exactly that. Every question you say is like prophetic because I happen to be coming to that.
Okay, I'll stop. I'm sorry.
No, please keep asking. I love it. So why do I say that from the top of his backswing, where he has 70% on his left through his right foot and 30% through his left foot. On the left is the picture of his top of backswing. As soon as he's into early downswing, his pressure has shifted 82% onto the front side. All right. And you can see that in the pressure trace. This is Justin Thomas, a highly elite and talented and athletic young man. So how do we know that there could be involvement of central nervous system and of restrictions? So the main thing you have to know about the central nervous system is that it is always striving for dynamic balance. What do I mean by that? I'm going to stop sharing, and so you guys can see me. So given where you are positioned at the top, because in a typical golf swing, the lead shoulder is lower and the trail shoulder is higher. Given this position, if I were to simply drop it down and keep my pressure on my lead side, my club would never reach, it would undershoot the ball. And the central nervous system, your brain and spinal cord, is clever enough to maintain your dynamic balance or your balance in movement. So it knows that it needs to shift your pressure, I'm just going to call it weight or pressure, forwards, because this whole side has to drop down and the whole body must remain in balance. And the central nervous system will always strive to do two things. After you've learned a movement enough, it will somehow always strive to get your club back to the ball for you without you having to worry or think about it. And it will also try to use gravity whenever possible. All right. Now it knows that it's lifted this side. So it moves your weight slightly forward so that then there's less pressure to this side and it can use gravity to drop you down. For that is one reason that you know the central nervous system is doing this. The second reason you know it is that the pelvis can only rotate when it is horizontal. It can do some rotation when it at the top of the backswing, this side is higher and this side is lower. So the central nervous system will do something to level out your pelvis so that then it can have its maximal rotation. All right. How do we know that the pelvis needs to be horizontal? Because we know the biggest muscle, again, your favorite word, Mandy, the glute max of the butt, 71% of its rotational abilities are in the horizontal plane. And there are a bunch of other rotators of the hip. And those also are only able to rotate because of the way they are designed. Their line of action, we call it, is completely horizontal. So you need a horizontal pelvis. Your central nervous system is clever enough to drop your trail side down, get you dynamic balance and level out the pelvis so that it can then rotate because you've trained the body to do that over time. And my third and main proof, Mandy, of your brilliant question is that I have this tiny little picture on the top right. Do you see that?
Yep.
And that is the brilliant Sam Snead. And you can see that he has also moved everything to the left side. And believe you me, there was no pressure tracing and mapping in those days when Sam Snead played golf. So that's my proof that it's central nervous system. And now why do I talk of restrictions? Because I only talk of restrictions because Terry is a great one for saying there's some restriction which he's never explained in anatomical terms. And I'm going to explain, he's very right. And I'm going to explain what restrictions you might have. So you can see Justin Thomas from the top of his backswing, obviously like all good golfers, his trail side is dropping down. But then he kicks in his trail knee, his trail hip has not even leveled yet, and he's lifted off that foot. Do you see how he's pushed off that foot? So
Yep.
he's reduced the distance between his hip joint and his foot, when typically people are extending that slightly and dropping the hip enough that it's able to rotate. So this is a man-made restriction, just something he does. This may be like, as kids, a lot of us were told to kick the trail foot in, or I don't know how it happened, but this is what he does. I understand he's even tried to keep his trail foot grounded, and that hasn't worked. And it wouldn't work because you have to look at all the joints in the body to give him a complete solution. Anyway, so this is where he's at in his early downswing. And then this is him from a face-on view. You can see the knee is kicked in. And because he's kicked in the knee and he's laterally side bending on the right side, this is early downswing where he's shifted to the lead side, which I showed you before, or down the line view. And here, because he is now laterally flexing and has kicked in that knee, he's moved pressure to the right side. But also what he now has to do is get that hip level for rotation. So instead of dropping it down, he has to kick the right foot higher, and that helps to extend his pelvis. So in the third picture on the left, you see that he has to kick forcefully off the right foot or the right toe to let his pelvis, his right hip joint become level with his left hip joint. So he's pushing up rather than just letting it drop down with gravity. He's doing something awkward with his feet there. And finally, now that the hips are level, up to impact, he's rotating. But because he has to shift everything to the back side, because he's pushing off the right toe in order to extend that hip, then he just keeps going further back. And now at the very end at impact, his pressure is even further back, 93% of it, because his upper torso has also dropped down, and the upper torso has a lot of weight. And so that weight is seen as pressure through the trail foot. Did that make sense? Any questions?
Yes, we have some questions.
So his early downswing.
We have some questions.
Wait, let me just repeat. His early downswing happens with central nervous system control. And then because he does something strange with his right foot, his hips are not easily leveled. And then he has to push off the right toe to get the hips to level. And then finally he rotates, and he goes from the front to the back, rather than what those researchers found was use of the trail side muscles with a little more pressure there, and then use of the lead side muscles with a little more pressure there. And then I can answer your questions.
Okay. So I've got a couple people. Richard wants you to review the change in pressure from Justin from trail foot to lead foot. But first, we talk about this Z trace being common in long drivers and people of small structure. And so, when we've worked with the traces of the long drivers, there's this whole thought that the winding up makes power. So if I'm standing there, those guys are doing like this, and then they swing, right? And so there's a couple of drills that Hash and Jake and those guys, Richard Hughes, are doing to get the wind up pressure. Do you not think that maybe the Z trace shown here for Justin and that back up in his swing could be an intentional wind up for pressure? For power?
So I'm saying that the downswing is probably, he could be pushing through his lead foot and getting more lateral movement to get his pressure so quickly to the lead side. But it can as well happen with central nervous system. How often are you going to say, move my whole body there, level out my hips? How many things are you going to tell yourself in the downswing?
No, I know. I mean, you're right. That a lot is happening in Justin's downswing very
the downswing
quickly.
lasts 1/3 of a second. So how much are you controlling and how much is being and let me tell you, I've seen a lot of professional golfers on the driving range when they're practicing before. They'll do all sorts of weird positions and things that the pros are telling them. But once they're on the golf course, they just let it rip. Nobody's doing any of these intentional. They might do one or two, but it's very difficult to have a bunch of thoughts in your downswing that lasts 1/3 second.
Sure. Donald Mackin says it looks like a prescription for injury.
As well, absolutely. And I've read somewhere that he has had a pain in his back. He's young. He's, I think, 27 or so. So it's just a matter of time. I would say also lead hip and lead knee are a big one, because he's totally having to first push this trail side foot up and extend the hip. So this hip is getting extended, as is the knee. And then as you shift weight onto that side, you're putting a lot of compressive force and torsional, rotational forces to that. And I would say lead hip and lead knee. I've always thought the way he jumps is going to lead hip and knee are in position to be easily injured.
Craig Moyer is commenting he's probably protecting his knee by unweighting it. You think that could be?
Does he have a knee issue?
I don't know.
Why does he kick in his right knee and come up on his right toe so early in his downswing? That is my question. And regardless of what it is, the pressured pattern, I'll come to that, is not an ideal one, and I'll explain why later.
So really quickly, while you go to your next slide, I have to say, I'm going to send Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas is Justin's dad, and he's actually webinared with us before a few months ago. What?
Send it to him. Yes.
I will. And Mike Thomas is a huge V1 supporter. And in your slide, a couple slides ago, I think that's him filming Justin in that pink shirt. Yes. Anyway, if you guys want to see that webinar, it's on our YouTube page. But really, it was fun because Mike Thomas.
And the reason that a lot of these, I think the elite pros are being trained in a very different way, because their coaches have access to a lot of biomechanics research, and then they put in little bits and pieces of it, and it doesn't make a comprehensive whole. You must understand you cannot just tell a person, push here, push there, use this pressure. How is it affecting your joints? What compressive and torsional and other loads are you putting on your joints? You can't just say move. Is that joint even able to do it? Let me give you a simple example, all of y'all. So I have an elbow joint, and my elbow joint is only designed to move me up and down in what we call a sagittal plane. All right. Okay. So this is my sagittal plane. It can move if I moved it this way, but not so efficiently. If I rotate out my shoulder and then bicep curl, it's not as easy. So the best way is to have this. And when you do this, your shoulder is slightly, people say anatomical position, but it's slightly externally rotated, and then it's easy to bend and straighten your elbow joint. That is all that the elbow joint is designed to do. If you put some rotational loads on it, like people put in baseball, then they get injury on the, that's off topic, but anyway, I can discuss it if anyone is interested. Anyway, so to get back to Justin, this pattern, people may justify in any way they like, but I feel it is not the maximal use of the ground. And let me explain what I mean by people may justify. In the video from which I got the pressure traced by some very famous and very good instructors, they say that, sorry, let me go back. They say that at early downswing, he has a lot of vertical force, and for that reason, and they say that by impact, it's very good for him to have got the pressure that he has on the trail side, because it's an indication that he got a rising angle of attack. Because for a driver, you always don't want a descending blow, but an ascending angle of attack. But I have to contradict that by saying, at this stage, already at early downswing, he's maxed out in the blue graph on his vertical force. So immediately after that, he's going to get his maximal upward movement. After that, everything else is going to be too much upswing. So he'll have to do something else to compensate for that. I think it's too early. He's maxed out his vertical force, and he's going to therefore get his upswing movement too early. That creates the upswing angle of attack. From there on, what is he doing to continue to go up, and how much higher do you need to go? There are much easier ways to get to have your driver get an ascending angle of attack. All right, so that's not the best way to do it. And then here's a much more and this is another important thing somebody mentioned about injury. Besides injury, I would like to say about performance that I was very surprised when I got into the topic of Justin Thomas. There are lots of videos I didn't know of PGA players having bad shots. So I believe his typical shot is a fade. And in this shot, he had a slice. And then he had a shank at Riviera last year, I believe. And he had a hook in some recent event. So the two on the right where the club face will shut rapidly are the shank and the hook. You will see that his, and yes, it could be camera angle and things, but it is mainly that there is a difference in the pattern. You will see that his foot is facing backwards away from the ball in the shank and the hook, while in the slice or the fade, you can see the sole of his shoe, which means he has rotated through. And if you have excessive rear foot pressure coming into impact, you can have a lot of mishits. How do I know this? Because the swing that I have developed relies on positioning you appropriately at the beginning before you begin your backswing. So it can have too much pressure on one side, too little pressure. It can have too much rotation, too little rotation. And that combination of things that makes you fall back can make you kick your right thigh forwards in order to get some pressure off it. And when you kick it forwards, as he's doing in the shank and the hook, the combination of positions of your body will cause your club face to shut abruptly and cause your shank and hook. So that's another reason why that excessive pressure on the trail foot is not ideal to my mind.
Okay, so I have a couple comments I want you to just comment on. And it could just be that you have differing opinions, who knows. So David Jankowski, hi David, nice to see you, is asking, would his lower body be reacting to the lack of angle in his spine at the top of backswing and transition?
Lack of angle in his spine. Well, I guess that's the same thing as saying that your torso needs to drop down to create the angle, if that's what you're saying. My problem is that I either see you, Mandy, or I see my own slide. Sorry.
Okay, so one more question. So Craig Moyer, and I actually might hook you guys up. He's got some interesting questions. His left heel leads his downswing. He is countering the movement and releasing the stress. And they're saying, he hits it further than anyone considering his weight. So what do you think about that? His left heel leads his downswing. He is countering the movement and releasing the stress.
I think he's a phenomenal athlete. I think he has a great movement. He's able to use all his muscles. There just could be a more, so I always talk, people always laugh when I comment on expert players. It's just that I say they're brilliant, but they could be better. They could be more consistent. They could have less scope for injury. No one is as good as they possibly can get, for sure. If they have inconsistency, like occasional slices and hooks, and I've seen Justin under pressure will get those. And I firmly believe it's because of excessive pressure on his trail foot coming into impact.
Okay.
And I know that from personal experience, because with the swing that I've developed, you have to position your pressure correctly and have the right amount of rotation. And so I know that it's easy to develop it, to get a shank, an odd shank here and there. And then the feel you get is that your thigh kicked forward, just as he's doing in the blue picture, which is very clear. And where you can see that the sole is facing backwards rather than facing us, the viewer.
Okay. What slide number is this?
I don't know. I have to minimize to tell you? Are we running out of time? Is that it?
Well, we have 7 minutes left, but I have some good questions. So I didn't want to stop you, but I also want to address these questions. So.
Okay, let me rush through the rest then. Okay. Then we have this trace, and don't forget to look at the picture on the top right. It has some meaning. Here, the person is going from top of backswing 77% on the right. Then early downswing is 77% on the left. Again, they are getting into balance, dynamic balance of the upper and lower torso. And then late downswing is going forward, unlike Justin. And then just in time for impact, it goes back. Could that be central nervous system, or could that be some restriction? And for this player, I would say all it is central nervous system. What is happening is, you can see here in his video, and the two top pictures show it from a better view. He does not have much rotation up to this point and almost to impact. So he's falling back slightly to his trail side because the muscles that he needs to rotate, probably the internal obliques, need to have the pressure in that precise position to get the ability to rotate. All right. And now Mandy has said I must keep it light and funny. So my little joke is next. So should the golf swing be like a tap dance where you go dancing all over like our famous Fred Astaire? You younger folks may never have heard of him, but he was the king of tap dancing. And then the two pictures, and if you look back over the slides, you'll see that I have some with this picture on the left and the picture on the right. What's the difference is in a drive-through, you've paid your money and now you want to collect your money's worth. But in a drive-by, you're just driving by and hoping for the best. All right. So the swings of anyone who shifts pressure all the way to the front. Yes, they'll utilize some of the pressure as they're moving to the front while it's slightly on the trail side and the lead side. They will utilize it, but not as maximally as they could. If you have two legs and they have different muscles, and let me tell you, your trail side muscles are larger and they have a more force producing capability and they have longer moment arms. I won't go into details, but your trail side muscles are able to produce more force than your lead side muscles. So why not harvest that pressure? And then I'm going to show you this unique trace, which is based on the swing that I've developed. At the top, you're slightly, from address to the top, you're slightly closer to the left side. Then just because of a series of circumstances of how the swing, how you're positioned, you fall back in your early downswing, but only 53% is on your trail side. Not
Wait, what do you mean fall back? What do you mean fall back? Like more weight on the...
Your pressure is early downswing, your pressure is 53% on your trail side.
Okay.
You see the dot on the extreme right, I'm right-handed, and that's me. And then again, by the time from early downswing, it keeps going forward to late downswing and to impact. And then it goes down, which means I've really rotated my lead hip more. And this is what I call a drive-through style of using traces rather than drive-by. You are able to use the force of the muscles on the trail side, and then you use the force of the muscles on the lead side, just by having this trace. And this is the briefly, I don't want to bore you with all this, but you can see you get your high lead shoulder for a longer shaft and club arm and shaft position. So you get more speed, you get all of the things you want, but in a different manner. And the trace you produce is going from early downswing where it falls back slightly all the way to impact. It keeps going forward. It uses the muscles of both sides. That's all I'm trying to say. And then this is maybe my last slide. I work not just as a golf instructor, but also as a golf science consultant. I can work with coaches and individuals to consult on all aspects of your game, to do a basic evaluation. You need an evaluation to play your best golf, not just in your swing, but in every aspect of anatomy, injury, biomechanics, motor control for swing, nutrition, fitness, all of those things, sports psychology, to give you one big whole. And then your team can, of course, continue the work. So in conclusion, I would like to, if you have 3 takeaways from this, it would be that keep your pressure closer to the middle from top of downswing until late downswing so that you utilize all the muscles. Try and use the muscles of both the trail side and the lead side. Have more of a drive-through trace where you stop to collect the food you already paid for rather than drive by and just moving past the force plate and using a little bit of it. Of course, skilled players are very fast, so they will use a bit of it. It's not that they don't, and that's why Justin Thomas is able to be so good, but you could be better utilizing the pressure in a more deliberate manner. And the other thing is, instead of moving here and there and putting pressure on this foot and that foot, position your body's mass through which gravity acts through the center of your mass. Position that so that you can use that pressure and keep it there and have it in the right place at the right time, rather than pushing, pulling, not to have so many swing thoughts in the downswing, especially because there's no time and motor control tells you not to do that. And then my final slide for the day is a very, very big thank you to my friend Terry Hashimoto. I don't know if he's attending. Terry, thank you so much for the pressure mat, for being the godfather of pressure traces in the world. And my new friend Mandy, who's been brilliant. Also Mandy's team, like they're like this professional group, Anna, Kelly, Haley, and Will. All of these people have been super helpful. They were most professional, and that's it. So now any questions that you all have.
So will you unshare your screen? And thank you so much for that awesome slideshow. I've never had anyone do a screen share and my face show up. So that's pretty cool. And Terry is definitely the king of pressure, but I like to call myself the queen of pressure because I've been able to debut all of you experts on my Tuesday traces. I love it. It's very exciting. So thank you for being here. I do have a couple questions. Richard Rowe and Tom Hebert have asked questions, but we are at 8 o'clock and I promised you that I would get you back to your grandbaby. So I'm going to do an email introduction to both those guys and I will copy their questions to you so that you can address them offline.
But if you want to answer some couple of quick questions, I'm available.
Okay, so if you guys will hang in, thanks. If anyone needs to check out, I thank you for joining us and we will send the recording.
Thank you all so much.
But Richard Rose says, what is the ideal pressure at impact? You know, Justin is 93 trail leg. So do you know, as far as at impact, what percentage would you suggest is ideal?
So there's no such thing as ideal, but what I have discovered with this swing that I've developed, all right, so I'm rotating in advance. And then as soon as my what I call top of downswing begins, I have a little more pressure on this side. It keeps shifting to the lead side. And in my trace, you will see there's a ton, I think 93 or something on this side. And I think my internal rotators of my lead hip need a lot of pressure and then they fire maximally off. And these muscles can only act if you've got all the way there. So I would say at impact, just before at impact, I want to get this extra pressure on the lead side so I can pull the internal rotators through. And that gives me much higher trajectory because I'm probably getting a more not too ascending blow on the ball. I'm especially with both my irons and my woods, this is a wonderful feeling to have. And then it pulls you right up off into finish. So I would say I like it to be quite a bit on the lead side and going down towards your heel then.
So if you could put that number in a percentage, what would you call it? 50, 60?
I will just tell you, I have it there.
Yeah, I thought it was on that slide.
It says 84 at impact. So basically it doesn't go too much onto the lead side. Like I explained, if your hip and knee are outside of your foot, that's too much, but it's 84 at impact, which seems that, like I said, don't have the pressure getting too far outside on either side.
Okay, and then a couple great comments about thank you for your information and the effort in your presentation. Thank you, Craig and Gary, for those comments. Okay, then one more. Tom Hebert says, could the excess pressure on the toe be explained by Justin's pelvis center drifting more towards his toes? It just feels like a more stable position than the feeling of being flat-footed, having his pelvis balanced between his feet, heel and toe balance.
Yeah, I see a lot of players have pressure on both toes. To an extent, it's probably that you're getting pulled forward because of your arms and the weight of your club pulling you down and forward. So it can't be helped. It's something that happens, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it would be very difficult to have it on your heels, in fact, given that your arms and club are pulling you forward like that.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So please, if you would love to hear more, reach out to Doc at the methods that they shared in the chat. kkgolflessons@gmail.com is her email. And I'm going to let her go because I know she wants to go love on that grandbaby. Thanks, you guys, so much.
Thank you all very much. And thank you so much, Mandy. Thank you, Terry, if you're listening or whenever you check out the webinar.
Thank you, Doc. Talk to you soon.